And no, I will not take any prisoners. I will instead keep you informed of the developments, and at no point shall I act to negate the gains that we have made together as a country.
A powerful panel handpicked by President William Ruto to compensate victims of protests has just been frozen in its tracks. In a stunning legal twist, the High Court has suspended its operations, raising a bigger question. Is this about justice for victims or politics disguised as compassion? On Monday, Justice Kizito Magare issued conservatory orders stopping the functioning of Ruto's panel of experts on compensation of victims of demonstrations and public protests. This follows a petition filed by lawyer Levi Munyeri, who argues that the president's move not only sidesteps existing institutions but also stretches constitutional limits. At the heart of the ruling is Gazette Notice number 12002 dated August 25th, 2025. This document formally busts the panel and gave it sweeping authority to design a compensation framework. But the court has now suspended its effect, essentially freezing the panel before it could take a single step. Justice Magare went further. He restrained state agencies including the Interior Ministry and the State Law Office from implementing Ruto's earlier proclamation of August 6th. The petitioner Levi Munyeri is not a household name, but his legal challenge has shaken the system. His argument is straightforward. If Kenya already has the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights to deal with these issues of state violence, why create a new body that answers directly to the executive? For him, this is not reform, it is overreach. But beyond the legal arguments, it is the appointments that have set tongues wagging. Faith Odhiambo, the sitting president of the Law Society of Kenya, was named vice chair of the panel. To some, this was a badge of honor, proof that LSK has a seat at the table. To others, it was a compromise and an unnecessary blending of advocacy with state power. The society itself is now visibly divided, with senior advocates cautioning that Odhiambo's role risks blurring the independence of LSK. A petition to oust her as president of LSK is also in the pipeline.
Through the shoot to kill and shoot in the leg orders, can be the ones to again be responsible for redress and compensation of their own victims of police brutality. A wolf cannot decide matters of the cow crown. The Swahili say, fisi hawezi kufanya kesi, kusimamia kesi ya mbuzi.
The rules of natural justice demand impartiality. Victims cannot trust a process led by a presidential appointee whose loyalty is now to the state. The same state that was the aggressor in the Azimio protests 2023, in the Gen Z protests 2024, and in the recent Sabasaba protest.
Chairing the panel is none other than Professor Makau Mutua, President Ruto's constitutional advisor. Mutua, once a fierce critic of the same government's approach to protests, now finds himself defending the president's framework. For critics, this duality feels like political irony. For the administration, it's a strategic move, placing a respected legal mind at the helm to soften opposition. Yet, this strategy may be backfiring.
We will make sure that these Kenyans are compensated. By the way, there is no budgetary allocation. You cannot therefore jump up and say we'll pay Kenyans, they like to say 100,000 or 10 million. The amount that they will have to pay so that this country will be committed to constitutional order and conduct will be punitive. There's such a thing in law as punitive damages, including those people who committed these atrocities.
Dangling of goodies has just started. Even this Professor Mutua team is just one of the goodies to show that at least they want to compensate the victims. They might not.
Critics, including prominent voices in civil society, argue that the panel is designed to overshadow and even undermine the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, which has the constitutional mandate to address such matters. By creating a parallel structure, they say the executive is cherry-picking loyalty over independence. Justice Magare's orders are not final, but they set in motion a tight legal calendar. The respondents, among them the Ministry of Interior and the Attorney General's office, must file their submissions within 3 days of receiving Munyeri's documents. The final deadline is September 30th, and the matter will be heard on October 6th before the Kerugoya High Court. That hearing promises to be explosive. On one side, the state will defend the panel as a legitimate innovation for addressing the human cost of protests. On the other, critics will insist it is a political tool meant to sanitize the government's image amid growing public anger over police brutality.
Faith Odhiambo will not let you down. The bloodshed of our comrades must not be in vain. And no, I will not take any prisoners. I will instead keep you informed of the developments, and at no point shall I act to negate the gains that we have made together as a country.
I want to echo my Vice Chair's emphasis that this particular effort is victim-centered. It is impartial, and it is non-partisan. It is apolitical. It is not an exercise in political expediency. It is a heartfelt exercise in which we intend as a country to lead not just with the head, but to lead with the heart.
There should be no situation where a government or anybody contemplates loss of life, unless it's accidental, unless it is God's act. Life lost through police brutality or lost through executive orders or through breaking of demonstrations or simply violating people. That life is not one that you want to say it can be lost, then compensate. So let us first of all uphold the right to life. Why would a professor of law bring in lawyers to violate the constitution, to violate the law? Because what authority does this ad hoc committee have as to talk about compensation, and what authority do they have to enforce that compensation? What if that process has no legal clothing and cannot withstand any test of time? What if it's going to be unfair to Kenyans and Kenyans were to go to court? What a waste of time.
What does this mean for President Ruto? For now, his attempt to control the narrative on protest victims has been paused. For the victims themselves, compensation remains uncertain. And for Kenyans watching closely, this case is about more than just a panel. It's about power, law, and the fine line between state responsibility and political theater. What do you think? Should the panel be allowed to go ahead with its work? Drop your comments. Newsroom, Maisha TV, Bushabi Jr.